Happy Friday, Jay.
What's up, Chris? It's Friday.
It is Friday.
I
Welcome,
can't
welcome,
believe
welcome.
we've made it.
Yeah, we
It's been
did.
a
We did.
long
We
week.
did. It has been a week for sure. Lots and lots of things have happened this week. We'll get to that. Welcome, everyone who is out there listening, watching, or otherwise. I don't know what else you'd do, but one of those things to the show today. This is the show where we talk about accounting and accounting adjacent information, mostly as it relates to e-commerce, but not only. I'm Chris Kino, and I am here with Jay Kimmelman, my co-host. Last week, we talked about budgeting and forecasting. We pointed out the basics and highlighted all the steps you should take to make sure that you're doing that effectively. This week, we're going to continue what was an impromptu and unplanned series on things you should do in the middle of the year by by talking about steps that you should take in your marketing efforts. We'll talk about reviewing and analyzing current performance. We'll talk about evaluating your marketing channels, and we'll also talk about steps you should take when adjusting your strategy going forward, as well as some like things to watch out for and all of that kind of stuff. But before we
Lots
get
of
to
fun
that,
stuff.
it should be lots of fun. It should be particularly lots of fun because we're doing some of those things ourselves. So it should be a good conversation, and I am definitely looking forward to that. But before we get to that, what has happened since last week? It looks like the IRS has had some things going on, right, Jay?
Busy, really busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've heard that they have started processing ERC claims again.
Yeah.
The moratorium has been pushed for a while. So
All
all
right.
claims through looks like January 31st, 24 are going to start being processed.
All
And
right.
those claims after that date will be sitting for a while.
All right.
They're expecting about 50,000 claims to get pushed through in approximately the next week. They've been doing approximately that a week for a while, but we'll see where that goes.
Right.
28,000 disallowances have been issued. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
that's a good
lot of
amount.
disallowances. There
Yeah.
have been 460 criminal investigations.
Well,
I
that's
am
what we like to
glad
see.
to not see that on my end, and I
That's
wouldn't
right.
see that. But yeah, I do not want to get near any of that.
Right.
And yeah, they are appealing some of those disqualified claims or disallowed claims. But
Yep.
it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. Um, I
Yeah.
saw the amount. I can't remember the dollar value of the fraud that they perceived it to be, but I don't remember
Oh
what
my
that is.
goodness.
But it was a large, large number. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I know. I know. It looked like there were just a lot of claims that have been continued to be processed that just were not, and so the IRS is back out searching for those guys, and you can see that through the disallowances and also these criminal investigations. So it's definitely great to see that, um, and uh, and I'm hopeful that if you've got a good claim that's in, like you're going to get processed now, at least as long as you were in that window, you're going to start seeing more processing activity there. And then, of course, if you got a bad claim in, well, too bad. You shouldn't have put it in anyway. Come on now. Uh, we haven't talked a lot in a while about the impacts of reviews or like customer feedback. But we will talk actually a little bit about that I think today. And so it was actually very very relevant that the tax advocate they had gotten some complaints I think and that those complaints are going to lead to a detailed review of the process. I thought this was a fascinating story of how if you're getting not the right level of service that you feel like you deserve, that you can take it to the manager, and and you might actually get to make some progress. So I don't know exactly what a detailed review of the process or whatever means, but it was exciting, at least from my perspective, to see that there's momentum there, right? And we've talked about it here about how some of those different lines, like you weren't getting the like results that you needed, and so somebody complained about it, and they're going to make some improvements. I hope that's kind of what I expect to see.
well, looking at that report that we talked about probably about a month ago, it showed
Yeah,
that satisfaction was up, and like
yeah,
85% of the calls were going through, and
right.
real live IRL experience proves that to be wrong. So
Right.
hopefully they're going to dig into that, and hopefully we will be able to get faster, quicker, easier access to answers from the IRS.
Here's hoping so. Um, Definitely. One other accounting related thing, talking about faster and quicker access. Actually, this has nothing to do with that, but I read an article this week that kind of leaned on a little bit that fast tracking program um, where the different state agencies were considering like using time served as a replacement or in place of like extra hours of college. And one of the things that I read in an article this week was that there's momentum and building momentum toward a mastery based college accounting class versus like your old test based or performance based where your grade is, instead of being based on how you do on a test, it's based on how you do on a project, and you get a couple extra tries at that project. And but at the end, you know that you like truly understand what's going on there. And I thought it was really interesting. It was an interesting read. It was I think it was out on the Journal of Accountancy. So if you all want to go read it, go do that. But it was a really interesting article because I do think like that is a much more powerful education process. And I don't know if we've talked about it here, and if we have, it's certainly been a long, long time ago. But like most college courses don't set you up very well for success in the field of accounting, because an audit class is just like nothing like what you actually do in audit work. And sure, a tax class may like walk you through a tax return, but it's just not the same as the like on the job experience. And if you're being evaluated on like how you score to an exam, like it's just not comparable. And so this idea of this mastery based college accounting classes, I think, is going to be really powerful, because it's going to mean that those people that do come through the pipeline are going to be that much better prepared to actually go execute on accounting related stuff. So I thought that was really, really good to see, and a good article to read.
Well, it makes sense. Make that
Right.
your senior year. You don't have four classes, you have this one project, and
Right.
it wraps all your education up. We had like a business in a box when I was in high school taking my
Mm-hmm.
introductory college level accounting class.
Yeah, sure.
And I learned more from that than I think I did in 2 years in college by doing it and getting it done. And,
Right. Sure.
just
I do.
it was
I
awesome.
Yeah, no, I still remember actually very much like the tax research class that I took. I hated that class because it sucked having to do research related to tax. But it
Yeah.
was really, really powerful because it gave me a lot of skills around the research and actually like going out and doing that research. And I use that to this day, like some of the information of like how to effectively search and what you should be looking for and how you can utilize
Yeah.
keywords effectively to find the solution that you're looking for. Like it's that same kind of application. So even if you don't enjoy the class, it like really does give you a great set of skills that you can use going forward. So here's hoping for more of those.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that. I don't know how that ends up impacting maybe the cost of education or the like how those classes like start to change or anything. But it is really good to see it happening. Um, I did read another article that was shared with me around the accounting shortage and some of the extra impacts that it was having. Um, and so this article pointed out that 34.4% of companies, and I don't know who they surveyed or what size they were, or if it was just like a full pool, but 34.4% of these companies with material weaknesses in control, so those that have identified like a big problem in their control structure, typically those 34% pointed to a lack of accounting staff. And the companies that had this same problem, they also had higher turnover at the CFO level. Instead of like a 20% turnover rate, which was kind of a regular and across the board, theirs was more like 30%. And you could see this like significant change in the turnover at the CFO level. That kind of, maybe it's not directly related, but I bet that there is some relation. That's what this article was saying, is that hey, this is probably correlated. Um, that that the lack of accounting quality was impacting the C-suite too. And so I think that's an interesting thing to think about, because most of the time when you think about it, that's not what you're thinking about. But it is definitely an impact that's out there, and that's something that we're going to need to resolve.
Yeah,
because
well,
it
turnover
causes all
and
kinds of different challenges there.
shortages, I mean,
Right.
it leads to control issues because, I mean,
Right.
you go around segregation of duties. You
Right.
have people doing multiple jobs because you don't have staff to do it. So, it ends up
Yep.
happening. I mean, it's inevitable. And then those reports get up to upper management. Oh, that's the CFO's fault. Let's get rid of him. And then
Right.
you're repeating the cycle.
Well, yeah, and I thought about it from not just that perspective too, because that is definitely true that the CFO is the one that's ultimately accountable for this, typically as the overseer of the accounting process. But to some degree too, like they don't want to be the person who has to do all that work.
Right,
They don't want to be the person who's then like doing the things because it's somebody has to do it, right? It has to be done, right? And so there is probably also not just the like uh, whatever you would call that involuntary turnover. There's
right.
probably a few situations where the person is just like, forget this, I'm out. Um,
Yep.
so it's a problem. It's a very real problem. It is not a surprising part of the problem, but it was one that I thought that I'd read an article about. So thought it was worth highlighting.
For
One other
sure.
article that was worth highlighting, and it's specific to here in Texas, but the Texas CPAs. So the Texas Society of CPAs, I think it was, is working with For Impact Data, a company whose name I recognize, but I'm not sure why, to create a CPA technology evolution cohort. Now, this is a thing that's just been created. So the article, I mean, was just like, hey, we're doing this thing. You can't even sign up right now. So once that comes out, it'll be something that I probably look at to try to see like what tell me more about this. What does this mean? Because I am interested in what that means. But it is interesting to see a society of CPAs partnering with um, an outside entity like this, one that looks like it's around data analytics, that kind of thing, um, to make the profession better and to make the work product better. So I'll
That is
be
interesting.
really interested. Yeah, I'll be really interested to watch and see how that evolves. Which is not intended to be a pun on the evolution cohort, but is. So I'll be interested to see how the technology evolution cohort evolves, because I do think that that will be really, really interesting. Um, and I do think that'll be something to watch out for as CPAs and CPA firms and societies of CPAs start to connect to other market areas to get more information and to use kind of some of that information that's out there and that exists to improve, especially in the technology area. Seems like fun. Um, any other accounting specific news? So most of the other things that I saw out there this week were related to e-commerce, but do
Yeah,
we have any other like accounting stuff? No.
not
All
that
right.
I'm
So
aware of.
I read another article that was shared with me about consumer reporting, and that there's a lot of recessionary trends out there. Folks are starting to hold on to their cash, like this is consumers are starting to hold on their cash, and particularly like lower income consumers, like they just don't have as much free capital, or if they do, they're just not spending it in the same ways. With some big companies like McDonald's reporting lower than expected income, or just generally lower earnings overall. So I thought that that was really, really, really particularly relevant today because that's something to be aware of. And if that kind of transaction activity, so if recessionary activity or certainly low income, like string tightening, is gonna impact your business, it's probably a really good time to evaluate your marketing plan. So we'll talk more about that again later. But there are definitely some things that are happening out there that are pointing to maybe some general slowdown, and maybe that will change over time. But at least right now, that's what's going on. Um, Also in the e-commerce space, Amazon, their inventory deadline for Black Friday is a week earlier than last year. So in other planning news, make sure to plan that and be aware that your inventory has to be where it needs to be a week earlier than it did last year. So I know that a lot of times when you budget and forecast, like we talked about last week, when you budget and forecast, you kind of expect the same type of thing, and this is now going to throw a hiccup in that. So do whatever planning you can now. You don't have a whole lot of time to react to this, to be honest. If you were planning to just in time it, you're kind of in a tight spot. There's probably not that long before now and then, but it is definitely something to be aware of and something to watch out for.
Do you
Um,
have that specific date at this point, or did you just pick
it
up
was
this
not in
info
the
on Google?
article that I read.
Yeah.
I just read that it was a week earlier. So I do not know when that is, but I'm sure that while I talk about this next thing, maybe it'll show up on Google for you, Jay. one one other article that was really relevant to something that we talked about not that long ago was that Pitney Bowes. Pitney Bowes, I recognize from being the people who lease you stamp machines. I always used to see them in my clients like lease listing. Pitney Bowes is selling off their global e-commerce arm, and I think that they do shipping and logistics. They're basically like a 3PL. And it was really, really, really not profitable for them. $136 million loss in the recent history. And so that is just a reminder that outgoing logistics is really hard. And so if unless you feel extremely skilled at doing it, it is so much more valuable to partner with a third party partner that can do that for you. Because even someone like Pitney Bowes, who is a really, really, really large company, can really be hamstrung by it. 136 million is really bad,
Well,
and so that's
and it
part of
also
their
tells you to understand what your niche is, and
right,
when you're in your niche, you want to spread it out and go horizontally, and maybe okay, let's get into logistics, and well, maybe you didn't exactly quite understand it when you jumped into it because I
right.
mean, literally, it was a fire sale. They sold it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it was not great for Pitney
Not
Bowes.
not pretty at all.
150 million dollar loss, I think I saw around this, and they're on top of that loss, they're also funding maybe 45 million, I think, of
Yeah,
like working capital stuff for going forward to make sure that the new company can at least fund its operations for a little while. So yeah,
yeah,
really,
for sure.
really, really icky for those guys. So Jay, like you said, um, I don't know much about their global e-commerce brand, and if that is something like you're talking about, where they kind of like were like, hey, we do stamp printing. Why not ship stuff to? Yeah, like and
Yeah,
they just like kept adding on companies, and this one just was a really bad investment option for them, or something like that. That's very possible.
no,
Um, but again, the biggest and most key reminder out of this, of course, is that like logistics is difficult, and if it's not something that you're skilled in on your own, find a partner who is skilled in it and let them help
exactly.
you be successful at it. That I think is super critical. Um,
Exactly. And coming back to that Google comment you made there, October
yeah.
19th.
There you go.
So,
There you go. So you do have a
the
little bit
reason
of
I
time.
wanted that, the reason I
Yeah.
wanted that is, it's still two months away. So it gives
Right.
you some runway so that you can
Right.
actually reach out to your vendors and you have great relationships. Hey, I need you to either number one, make it a little bit faster, or number two,
Yeah.
ship it a little faster. So,
That's right.
it gives you the time, and that's why it's so important to start planning and forecasting these things,
Important.
you know, April, May,
Months in
June,
advance.
and,
Right.
and
Exactly.
know all about it. Yeah.
That's right, and it's so important, because especially if you're getting stuff from China, like if you are trying to make 10, 15 or something like that as a deadline date, you kind of need that to be on the water in a couple weeks. Um,
Right.
so
Exactly.
so it's really really important to be aware of it and to be like on top of that as much as you can, so that you can be ready and that your customers can get the stuff that they want at Black Friday.
It would suck if you bought 100 grand or $1 million worth of inventory and it missed
Uh-huh.
that deadline.
It would
You
be
know,
the worst.
it would be the worst
The worst, an absolute cash flow nightmare. Um,
for sure.
so, so be ahead of that. You do have time to plan, but you do not have much time to plan, and especially since they moved it up a week, like you're that much tighter. So, what would you say was the 19th of October?
October 19th. Yeah.
Yeah, so be aware of that. It's right after a nice tax filing deadline, so a busy week for accountants out there, and certainly support people
Exactly.
for in the e-commerce space for sure. But once the inventory gets there, at least then you're just running into marketing efforts. It's not like it's not like it's horribly
Exactly.
busy from there, right? Yeah, just no. I'm sure it just doesn't stop until the end of the year, basically. When we talked about shipping stuff from China, I actually read an article too about some additional proposed restrictions that were going through Congress right now on Chinese trade, which I thought were really important here, especially for those people who are importing things from China. These particular restrictions looked to be focused on some rules around de minimis inbound shipments, where shipments under $800 or something like that, right, could just kind of like come in and not be really registered. And I don't know if that was like $800 boxes of products or what was going on, but but companies like Temu and Shein had really been taking advantage of these like de minimis options, and getting lots and lots of inventory into the United States. And so there are some new proposals to include maybe a fee associated with these transactions, or just some general other types of restrictions around these, so that you have a little bit more tightening around what those shipments look like, especially in that de minimis space. And so, especially if that is relevant to you and your company, that's something to be extremely aware of, because that can have huge impacts on your shipping costs or on the ways that you want to bring product into the U.S. market. So,
It's funny you bring that up because just last weekend, my daughter placed an order with Shein,
mm,
and
yeah,
I got it at the door.
yeah,
I mean, it got here in 3 days,
wow,
and it went through customs because it was shipped from China, which I don't understand how it got here so quickly.
wow, it's
And it
amazing.
was like a $20 order. I mean, come on.
They
And
threw it on a fast
and
boat.
they threw it on the fast boat, and it looked like they spared it no expense on packaging because that thing was torn up. I mean, it went
Uh-huh.
through customs. They tore that thing up, and it's like, here,
Yeah,
kid.
right.
And it was
Here's
like
some
twenty
pants.
dollars, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. In the future, that may be more like $22 or $25, as they start to add some fees and some restrictions around
Yeah,
this. I don't. The article that I read didn't really talk much about the politics of this. I'm sure there are some political motivations, just generally, or really like overall trade motivations. I'm sure this is a buy in the USA type deal. Um, but it was interesting that, especially in August of an election year, like this is a bipartisan effort,
yeah.
to make some progress with this. So it's clearly something that's on someone's mind. So that's something, again, if it's going to impact you or your business, and that can be in both ways, right? So if you're competing with these companies like Temu and Shein, this may be very valuable to you. But if you're operating in the same way, it may be very restrictive. So be aware of that. Understand what the rules are around that. Again, this is just proposed, so it's not a final rule, and I'm sure that there will be changes and amendments and all kinds of other shenanigans that go along with it. But definitely something that if you're working with China in any kind of way, or really internationally, generally, it's really targeted at China, but internationally, generally, be aware of this. It's going to impact you. What other news? What did we miss? We'll talk about the Olympics later, so that news can
Yeah, I
come
mean,
come after.
the southeast is greatly underwater. The whole north, actually, the whole east coast is feeling the
Yeah,
effects of former Hurricane Debbie. Um,
yeah,
we went through it here Sunday into Monday,
yeah,
and in the week before and with Debbie, we had about 10 inches of rain here.
yeah. Whew,
So
that's a lot.
it's crazy. There's a lot of rain, and I really
You need to
felt
go
really bad for those people in South Carolina where that thing was just sitting there and just churning
and spinning
water on
around.
them and
Yeah,
flooding
drop,
them.
drop, drop.
It's crazy.
Yeesh.
Yeah,
Yeah, this shows my ignorance around rainfall levels. I actually have no idea if we get 10 inches of rain in a year here in DFW. We probably do, but I don't know. But that feels like a lot. That's like a whole
yeah,
laptop length of height, right? Like that's a good amount of rain in a short period of time. And if you're and obviously we talked about this with Houston when the
yeah,
first early hurricane came through. Like, some of these cities just aren't designed for that much rainfall, and
for
when it
sure.
comes, man, it just it floods everything. And if it comes in that much, like, like you're talking about 10 inches or even more in the South Carolina area. It's just
Yeah. No,
yeah.
they got somewhere between
Hopefully it will
15 and
dry up.
25 there. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's a lot. That's a lot. That's up to your waist in water in rainwater in a day or
Yep.
something like that. Like that's a good amount of rain. Good
That is
amount
a
of rain.
lot.
A lot of rain. I know that there was another storm out there. What I looked like it was maybe missing Florida this time because it's just going to go across the Gulf like we kind of thought it might.
That one we talked about. I think you and I talked about that on Monday. That one has dissipated.
Oh, it's
There
done.
are that one's done. There are now 4 waves coming off the African coast. The second of
Yikes.
which has a 40% chance of developing,
Yeah,
but we should be back from Zerocon before there will be any
it gets over here.
effects.
All right.
Yes.
Well, here is hoping that is true. Um, and and personally, I kind of hope that there's a very like super casual storm, not too much damage. But E is next, right? So let's get an Elwyn out there. It's my daughter's name. It would be awesome for her to have a hurricane.
Oh, that'd be
I
funny.
doubt they'll ever call it that, but it would be awesome if they did. I
Yeah,
think there was if I remember right, wasn't the C1 Chris this year?
I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah, see if we can get a Chris, an Elwyn, and a Kayla. Like we can get the whole family as a whole family of hurricanes in 2024. Let's go.
Oh,
but
that would be too funny.
it would be too funny. It's like 0% chance to occur.
Right.
Elwyn was
Yeah, yeah.
intentionally a very unique name, so we'll. I am not holding my breath, but we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
there
We'll
you
see what
go.
happens. We'll see what happens. Jay, I got a pretty good idea that today you're drinking water out of that Yeti. Is that
I
true?
am. I am, yeah.
Yeah. Is that got a fun night ahead of you, or what's or just need to
Yet to
need
be
great.
determined at this point.
Mm,
We're just a
fun.
couple weeks out of college move-in, so we got lots of
Yeah,
things going on.
yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine. Today it is life or death. Um, an whoops, wrong way. An IPA from Gigantic Brewing. I don't know where Gigantic is. Portland, Portland, and then when I'm finished with that one because I'm almost done. Equal parts. We got an Italian style pilsner called Gorlami. I'm sure that has some really cool an Italian meaning, but I have no idea what it is. So it'll probably be good
So,
though. Nice.
so Christy's watching, and she has never had a hurricane or other name storm named after her or a loved one either.
Yeah.
So
See, I already
yeah,
did. This is kind of a bummer, but Chris, at least
yeah,
Chris was kind of casual, just kind of floated on through,
yeah,
not too much damage, if I remember
exactly.
right. Yeah, that was
Yep,
that's the way we want Elwyn to be if she comes out. So we'll see how that goes.
for sure.
Sorry, hurricane talk. Too funny. Oh, we didn't anticipate that today. Um, so again, we've now kind of hit on this topic maybe 3 or 4 episodes in a row, but it's the middle of the year and it's time to know what you're doing and where you're heading, right? And there are tax planning and planning for your budgets and your forecasts. And then today, like one of the areas that you also need to be considering at this time of year is your marketing. And so that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing strategy generally. We're going to talk about the importance of doing a review of marketing, and then we'll talk about some of the things that you should be thinking about as you change your strategy heading into the second half or the last part of the year here. And so, Jay, I really would love to hear your thoughts on like what are the best benefits? Like, why is it so important to do a mid year review of your advertising strategy generally?
Well, for most e-commerce businesses, this is the time when they're heading towards their busiest time of year.
Right,
So you want to see what has worked and what hasn't. I mean, the markets and trends change, and you want to make sure that your marketing spend and your efforts are being done on platforms, channels, and activities that are going to give you the best return. So
right,
you want to review what has happened over the last 6, 8 months, review it and compare it to the prior year and prior year to that if you have that information. But you know, see what's working, what's not. And this
right.
is the point in time where you still have a little bit of wiggle room, where you could do some A/B testing and see what's actually working, and try a few different things out. And that's when you're ready to pull the trigger and fund that holiday season.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the important thing to remember is it's just like planning your inventory management. Planning your ad management is just as critical because you don't know what's going to be successful yet unless you've already like done all of that evaluation. And the market is changing in advertising all of the time. And so it is important to be consistent and to understand exactly what's going to be as successful as possible so that when you do have to outlay a lot of money to this when the time is right, that you're doing it to the right stuff, that you're doing it to the most effective ads, that you're doing it in the most effective way that you can. Um, if you don't do that, like you could just continue to spend money in areas that aren't successful or that just aren't providing as much value, and so that can be a pitfall or a problem associated with like your ad strategy already. Like if you just set it and forget it, like you're going to run into problems. It's the exact same thing that we talked about with budgeting last week. Like if you're not evaluating it regularly, you're just going to either not notice problems that are happening or not take advantage of opportunities that might show up. And so doing those things can be extremely important. And now is the time to do it because it gives you time to make change.
And it's not only not take advantage of those opportunities, you risk missing out on those
That's
opportunities
right.
by not doing it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's really
Absolutely.
important.
Right. And so I think there's definitely a couple like key areas and key metrics to review as it comes to like what your current performance is doing and how you're doing right now. When I think about that, like some of the most critical ones from my perspective, right, are like what's your kind of like trailing ROAS? What's your website traffic? Like how many hits are you getting? How many people are coming through? And then a really important one is what's your conversion rate? Because if you're getting people to the website but you're not selling stuff from the website, if you're not converting them, like that's a pretty good indicator that you got something like you're at least got engaging content, right? But you got something else that you need to improve. And so all of these metrics can be really important indicators of how your ad performance is doing right now. And especially you want to like work with and review them over time. Um, the good news is that a lot of the platforms that you'll use, a lot of the marketplaces that you have a lot of that information like, built right into them, where you can go find these conversion rates. You can see your traffic levels. You can see your order numbers. You can see your sales numbers. Obviously, that's also an important metric here. Um, and so that just reiterates again one of the things that we've talked about several times about how important it is to have a good marketplace and good performance partners that way. Jay, are there other tools or platforms that you know of or that you think about when you think about like analyzing your current performance?
Well, there are a lot of tools out there, and we're going to have a show dedicated to that at some point. So I'm not going to get into that right now. But the other thing, and you said you're not getting conversion. Is
Yeah,
it cart abandonment? Why are people leaving things in the cart? Is it
right.
due to the flow of your cart or your funnel, so to speak, that you're
Right.
having breakdown? So not only do you have to look at your marketing, you have to look at the process that you're going through. So
Yeah.
just add that in there as well.
Right. And I think that that's a really important thing to do because you shouldn't just be setting an email flow or a text message flow and again, just leaving it. You want to tailor it and make sure that it is being effective at delivering exactly the results that you're looking for. So that the people that are receiving those messages, the people that are scrolling through their emails or have actually accepted your SMS messages, like you want to make sure that like those people like are understanding what it is that you're offering, understanding why you're getting that message, and that it's coming at an appropriate time. Like those are all really important factors in that process. Um, One other factor that we haven't really talked about is evaluating your marketing channels more broadly. So, is email, is text messaging, is that the right option for you, or do you need to do something different? Like, should you be using social media more powerfully? Should you be investing more in your Facebook ad spend or your Google ad spend, or on Amazon? Maybe it's PPC that you need, and you just need your product placement to be better. Like all of those things can be really, really powerful things, but it depends on where your customers are and what they're looking at and how you want to gain them. And the only way that you can do that is by understanding and evaluating all of this stuff that we've talked about already. Um, what do you think, Jay? Are there some other like marketing channels or an evaluation related to marketing channels that you should do or that you can think of when you think about like where you want to be?
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's about the social media channels. It's where your clients are, but it's not where they are, but where are they going to be? And
Right.
those tend to change. And we've seen that. And, it was Facebook and now it's Instagram and TikTok. And, you know, uh, is, are, I want to throw Snapchat out there too, because I know the kids, my daughter's still in there and using that too. And she's
Right.
influenced there by a ton of things. But
Right.
if you are using social, are you making it easy to buy? We talked about, was it last week? Um, was it the Walmart study? It said
Yeah, that was
that,
last week.
it's so much easier to buy off of social. Well,
Right.
the easier you make it to purchase, the easier those sales are going to be. So
Right.
find out where your audience is and tailor what you're doing to that audience. And if you have to,
Yep.
do a little bit of development there as well, I mean, it's well worth to do it to make it less frictionless to make that sale.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to make that process as easy as possible. Um, just like it's so important to make sure that you're evaluating like the profitability of each of those channels. So doing a ROAS analysis by channel, not by your entity, but by channel, so that you understand which of these are truly giving me like good quality return, and then as much as you can. Although sometimes this is really difficult, but like understanding how those channels interplay with each other, and how your Google marketing may influence and impact your Amazon sales volume as well. So there are a lot of things to think about there, and a lot of things that you'll want to do so that you can understand which of these channels is the right one, and how
I
they're
take
doing
that
currently.
I take that one step even further. Do it by
Yeah,
channel, but also do it by product and product line because different
yeah,
products will do better on other channels. So,
yeah.
yeah,
That is a really interesting way to think about it too, because I think you can also go even farther, one layer farther, but you don't want to like just do this to the level of granularity where it's just like
right,
so much that it's overwhelming, because you also want to do it by location, because maybe the U.S. market is different than the European market,
for
and
sure.
if you're selling in both of those places, then you want to like understand how those different channels are impacting people differently, um, and but it's the same like you're talking about, Jay, is like there may be a very specific thing that people are looking for on Instagram, versus the people that are looking for on maybe Twitch, or
Right.
some other channel that's out there, right? Somebody who's watching a long form YouTube video may have a lot different need than someone who's looking at just a Snapchat message or something on Twitter,
Most definitely.
on TikTok, right? Like those things are they're just different, and so evaluating the product performance at each of these different like marketing channels is also very important. Like you're talking about, Jay, like I do think that that's a really critical thing to do. But that leads us into what is the most critical thing to do, and that's to adjust your strategy when you need to, right? So set new goals based on the performance that you've had from the year to date.
Bye, Chris. That's interesting.
Did you
Welcome
do it or
back.
did I?
No, you just disappeared. That was great. I was about to jump right on in there. I was following right along the agenda there, and I was gonna.
Yeah,
But yeah,
let's
welcome back.
go. Well, hey everyone, I'm sorry I disconnected, but I'm back. And so I will reiterate again, the most important thing that we've talked about today is adjusting your marketing strategy going forward. And so, if you already heard me say this, setting new goals based on your mid-year insights remains important. That hasn't changed. And it's also important that you use all of that information from the analysis that we just talked about, to influence your strategy going forward. And so, when we talk about budgeting, when we talk about forecasting, like we did last week, These things connect directly to that, right? Using all of that information that you have as you reevaluate that forecast and those budgeting activities. This is where you can do it. And so allocating those budget dollars or the resources that you have, like maybe it's a certain team member that you need to do something different, right? Like allocating those efforts effectively is really, really important. And now is the best time of year to do it, right? So Jay, what else do you think about adjusting your marketing strategy?
So let's see, what else would I look at? I would look at, we talked about traffic, but I would always try to build more traffic. And if there's
Yeah,
any way to go about that, I would look at other ways of doing that at this point as well. Because, it's like I brought up funnel earlier. Traffic is like funnel. You got to have that top of funnel, get it in there, and and it'll eventually convert. And that's where your conversion rates come through. So that's
yeah, right.
about it. I can't think of anything else at the moment right now.
No, that's okay. I mean, there are there are lots of different things that you can do, right? We talked about you can change where you're spending money. You can also change the number of posts that you may be doing on social media sites. You can change. You could even utilize an influencer if you needed to, right? There are lots of different things that you can do as far as marketing strategy goes, and so evaluating what's been effective so far and what you expect to be effective based on what the market has done for you is really, really important. Um, there, one other thing to consider as you're like evaluating and adjusting your marketing strategy, or like potentially like innovative marketing trends or marketing tactics, right? I'm trying to think about what some of those are. Like we talked a little bit about that company a few months ago, or maybe not, just maybe a few weeks ago, or whenever it was. That's like changing the way that their ad formatting is happening in Denmark or wherever it
Right,
was.
right.
Like that could be an interesting trend, right? In this space, it might be a thing to think about of utilizing, right? Jay, are there some that you've noticed recently, or maybe that Abby's noticed recently, where you're like, oh yeah, that's a interesting way to market?
Yeah, she's very influenced by TikTok
Yeah,
and Instagram, and it's all about the
sure,
short form video right now. I mean, it's the hottest thing
right,
going. And
yeah,
even things that we're doing, they're saying even if you have static text, put it into a video or in a reel and push it through that way. And so that is the trend today. And as we know, the social networks are changing their algorithms constantly, and they're coming up and being more inventive all the time. 3 months from now, it could be a very different methodology that you're going to have to go about to
right.
get those messages across. So
Yeah, and so it's important then to be in touch with this, right? And
yeah,
to have some evaluation done around like what's working, right? So it is a lot of what we just talked about of which marketing channels are working for you and your product. And then taking some time to think about why those are successful or not successful. Um, the good thing about these innovative things are once you identify them, generally speaking, they're pretty easy to integrate into your strategy, because most of the time you can do something very easily to get yourself some foothold in this new area. And most of the time, they're not like cost prohibitive, right? You get this opportunity to at least like experiment relatively cheaply, and so that can be like jumping into a market can be really, really easy that way if you
mm-hmm.
understand, oh wait, I can do this and it does this, like that's great, let me try that across another platform or in another area. I think there are a lot of opportunities there to find yourself a lot of value, um, by using something that maybe you hadn't thought about before or that you weren't doing before. Um, one like final area that I think is really important to consider when you're going through this process, and we talked about this a little bit before, is incorporating customer feedback and also customer engagement. And so those types of things can be really important in shaping your marketing strategy because they're telling it to you directly. They're telling you, I want X or I need Y. And that can be so powerful to you if you use it in the right way. And so it is important, I think, to make sure that you are monitoring this feedback and then being responsive if it makes sense. Does that sound right, Jay, or is
Yeah,
there like
no, definitely.
other stuff we should think about there?
No, that's right there. And
Yeah.
the way a lot of companies do that, they do post-purchase surveys, and
Mm,
they will reward you with discounts if you do that. And
right.
they take that information very seriously. They want to know how you found their shop, how you not well, how you found it and how you liked it,
You're
and
right.
they also want to know, what brought you there. Was it one of
Yeah.
their ads, or was it a friend? Or so they want this information to help them drive it, and it's important to get that feedback. And like I said, they're offering discounts for it for you to do it. So
Right.
do it. Give them the information. Help them
It's
out.
like it's like the free chicken sandwich on your little receipt, right? It's the same thing. It's that same
Exactly.
concept, but in e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
Of some and think about it too from as an e-commerce entity, how valuable that information can be to you. If you're giving a 10% discount on a $50 item or something like that, you're spending $5. But that spend, like not everybody's going to use it first off, and then on top of that, like you're getting insight into exactly where your thousands of dollars of marketing spend are going to be best spent, and so there can be just like enormous value in tailoring that process to give you the answers to some of the questions that we talked about before, so that you can
And
get that good. No, go ahead,
that
Jay.
$5 investment saves you how
Yeah.
much? What does it cost you in client acquisition cost?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah,
If you're tailoring it and you're acquiring clients easier, like it can be extremely valuable.
exactly.
um, now, now, of course, anytime you're like considering a new marketing strategy, there are a couple things that you can do that could be really, really bad. And so we want to make sure that we highlight those before we leave today. And the first one is is like the whole point of this exercise, right? Like it is critical to analyze and understand data trends, because if you don't, you're either going to miss opportunities or you're going to like keep investing where it doesn't make any sense. And so you have to make sure that you are regularly monitoring what's going on so that you can make those proactive decisions. If you're not, you're causing yourself all kinds of different problems. That's probably the most important thing to take away from here. Is the point of this exercise is to evaluate what's working so that you can do something effective about it going forward. Like we just talked about, another point to like that you could make as a pitfall is just overlooking customer feedback, like just not caring about it, and we're not incorporating those results from those surveys. Like if you're doing it, and certainly if you're giving discounts for doing it, right? Like make sure that you utilize the information and not just do it to do it because everybody gives a survey, right? Like that doesn't make sense. But you need to make sure that you're using it in the right way. Um, Another thing that's a pitfall, the thing that people can do or companies can do is being too rigid, and so saying, well, this was my budget for the year, so that's what I'm going to do now. Like we talked about, there's some tightening right now, and now is the most important time to be flexible about the way that you're thinking about that, because it may be that ad spend that was directed at some people that aren't just going to buy anymore because they don't have free money, they don't have any extra money, like they're not going to buy now. So that part of your funnel just may not exist right now. And so targeting them with ad spend just isn't going to be the right answer. And so being flexible and being willing to make changes and utilizing new insights or market changes like can be extremely important. And not doing so can be really, really like burdensome. Um, another pitfall that you want to avoid, another thing that you want to think about is about your competitors. Like, what are they doing? Like, where are they? Like, if you're not in the same space, is there a reason why you aren't? Maybe it's the right thing. Maybe your money that you've spent on TikTok is just like going out the door and nothing is coming back, right? Maybe that's not the platform for you. But neglecting that competitor analysis can be a pitfall that results in you just missing opportunities or not taking advantage of those opportunities. Or from the same perspective, if your competitor has gotten off of TikTok and you're still there, like maybe you're spending money you don't need to spend again. And so again, like being willing to understand what everyone in the space is doing is really really important. One other pitfall to avoid, right, is inadequate goal setting. So just like setting unrealistic goals, we talked about with budgeting, right?
Yeah,
Of
for sure.
I'm going to triple my sales, no problem. Like that, like be realistic about that, because if you don't, it makes it really difficult to measure success, and then more importantly, like it makes it really difficult to understand what you need to do better, and so what changes you need to make. Last couple, like resource allocation, right? Like just spending money in the wrong places, like that can be a really, really problematic. You can also like not collaborate with the right team members, right? So if you're not talking to your operations team, but you're like selling a specific product, you're just selling the loads and loads of it, but you don't have any more of it, you don't have any more of it coming, like that's a big mistake. So be aware of like those areas and the information that they can provide, right? Same with like customer service, right? So if you're not leveraging them, you're not talking to your customer service team for some reason, like you're going to miss out on these opportunities to be able to make your experience better for your customers. And a few others that we've talked about a little bit already is and this is of course like this is one of our favorite ones is like failing to think about better technology, right? Like using old tools or old technology can really limit your ability to be able to do what you need to be able to do to implement new strategies. So you want to like be on the forefront of technology. It's not that complex, right? Just understand what's out there and make sure you're not just like living in the past. And you're not just like living in the old spaces either. Like you're not just spending all of your money only on Facebook. That you're utilizing different and emerging areas, right? Like that is very important because that's what people are looking at. That's what's relevant to
Mm-hmm.
your potential consumers. In that same vein, right, and ignoring emerging trends, like that's a very easy pitfall to make, right? If you're just not taking advantage and understanding what's happening in the market, like you're just going to miss out. So it's really important to do that. And the final like pitfall, the final thing that we want to warn about, right, is rushing into this process. Like it isn't as important that you have this done by Monday, but what is important is that you have a really effective strategy when you come out of this process. And so you want to do that review and you want to build out a review process, but you don't want to do it so fast that you don't get good information from it and that you take the wrong solution from the information that you've put together. Jay, are there other like highlights or other areas that you think are relevant to marketing strategy or
Well, the thing that comes to mind in technology and tools, and that's the thing that I love talking about anyway, is
okay,
we're not going into these marketing spends and doing all of this stuff manually. We're using tools to
that's
do
not
it
me.
and to help analyze it. You know, these tools are, it's just like the accounting tools we're using. They're
Right.
evolving, and we have to be looking at those social posting tools and the social analysis tools, and these
Yeah.
they're trying to make more revenue. They're up one upping each other. You've got to be looking and seeing what they're doing. And the only thing I would say is upgrade that technology as quickly as you can, because it's going to be in real time giving you some of that data you need, and pay
That's
attention to
right.
it. That's the biggest thing.
I think that is the biggest thing, right? Is pay attention to what's going on. It's the same output that we talked about last week from our budgeting conversation. The most important thing is to evaluate what's happening and make a good, strong strategic decision going forward. And so if you're doing that, if you're using the information that's available to you, if you're being aware of the things that are happening in the market, and if you if you continue to make small improvements along the way, you're going to find yourself being more successful. And so that's exactly what we want to tell you to do today is take the time right now while you can, before before everything gets overwhelming, to do exactly that, to evaluate what's happened so far, what's going to happen next, or what do we want to happen next, and how can we actually and effectively make it happen. Any any personal thoughts? Like, I feel like we're working through that process here at Higher Up too, of
Yeah.
how do we want to do that, right? We're up to whatever episode we are here today. I think it might be like 30. I haven't done.
I'll get an update on
Don't
that.
know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, I don't know. They're not all on YouTube yet, Jay. We got a couple old ones missing. Um,
That's true.
so yeah, it might even be more. So I don't know.
Might be more.
I tried to do the count. I think it was maybe 25 or 26. Um, but like this is a place for us to outreach, right? To talk about the
Yeah.
things that we know a little bit about, right? To do exactly what we were kind of talking about here of like, hey, how's this going? Are people watching? Do people care? Like, and we talk about that every week of
Yeah.
how many people are even interested in this? Obviously, like we talked about before, and like we'll talk about again in a little while. ZeroCon is next week, right? We're going to a conference, and and there's value in understanding like why that's important and what we want to get from that and gain from that. And while we're there, my one of the things that I want to do is to like do a little video summary while I'm there, a place for me to be able to put some of my experiences out on social media so people can see what's going on and see some of the things that I'm thinking about, right? Like, and that is part of a marketing strategy, um, with the end goal being like, talk to me about things that I care about, the things that I'm good at, and let me advise you in a way that makes that effective for you, right? That's what I want to be able to do, and that's the whole point of marketing in the first place, because I want people to buy the thing that I'm offering. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, Jay, do you have any extra thoughts about like how we're doing that now, or like, what
We're
you'd want to think
we're
about there?
stepping through and learning as much as we can right now.
Right.
I mean, I have my personal Instagram account, and I'm trying to launch a new one for a personal brand for, e-commerce and things like that. And I'm
Right.
figuring it out slowly but surely. So yeah,
Yeah, and
using
that's
different
the
tools and
yeah, right, exactly. All the things that we
yeah,
talked about today, right? And that's an
yeah, for
important thing
sure.
to remind yourself of too. Is like you're not going to make some change overnight that all of a sudden is going to triple your business. Like that's just not how it works. But what you
Yeah,
can do is make a small change that then identifies another small change that you should make. That identifies another small change that you make. That over time becomes a significant change and significantly impacts your business overall. And
exactly.
so that's the whole point of this process is you don't want to do it just one time a year. You want to do it regularly. You want to make sure you're understanding your marketing strategy on a regular basis, that you understand all of the things that we've talked about today. And again, so that you can ultimately be successful. So, any final parting thoughts on marketing strategies or mid-year reviews of the same?
I would say it's got to be done with equally as importance as your cash flow, as your inventory, as all these other reviews that we've discussed,
Right.
because it all impacts that
Yeah.
bottom line, cash
All
in
connected.
pocket.
All
So
connected, and
yes,
that is an important reminder. And so that's exactly where we're going to leave it. So,
yep,
Jay, super exciting week. Like we've talked about last week, we will not be here next week because we will be traveling back from Nashville.
yes we
Because
will.
next week is ZeroCon. So Jay, I have a question for you, and I'm going to put you on the
Yes,
spot. I didn't prepare you for this, but what is the thing that you're most excited about at ZeroCon?
I am. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of old friends and but I am super excited for product announcements. They've been so anticipating these products for a long
Yeah,
time, and it's been
awesome.
3 years in the making. And I'm just happy to be there. I'm looking forward to being on stage for the last session on day one. It happens to be on e-commerce. How
There you
about
go.
that? So
Relevant.
yeah, exciting. Yeah.
I love it.
The other thing I'm excited about is I'm also going to be, like you are going to be vlogging, I am going to be talking to participants, vendors, sponsors, and we're going to be streaming. And that channel is yet to be determined, but it will be by this time next week because it's going to be done. So yeah,
That's right.
that's a lot of what my weekend plans are. Is getting ready for that. I have a lot of assets to build out for that. So
Yep.
yeah, thank you, A2X.
Yeah.
I will be very adjacent to the A2X booth, which is
Right.
next to the Zero App Marketplace or the
All
Zero App
right.
Store booth. So if you are there, come see me. Let's take five
That's right.
minutes and have a conversation and broadcast it out live on the interwebs.
Do it. Do
Yes.
it. I'm so excited to see how this turns out. Like I mentioned, I was thinking about it. I was like, this is the first accounting conference that I'm ever going to, and so I think it's actually kind of relevant to people who've maybe never gone to a conference, or maybe only gone to one or two, or maybe never been to a ZeroCon, to be like, hey, I'm just going to be open with you. I'm going to tell you what I'm experiencing. I'm excited to do that, and I think I want to tell people what I am expecting, and then what I actually get, and kind of highlight both the what I thought going in, and then the what happened after the fact along the way. So I'm going to try to make some short, like they're going to be like video per day experiment size, like a minute. We're not talking like a 5 minute speech over here, but like a short review or a short intro into the different days. So I'm pretty excited to get to Nashville.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I just know it will be. I'm going to do the same thing as you, except a lot of these old friends that you have are going to be new friends of mine. I haven't met these people, and I'm sure I'm going to meet just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, probably,
For
knowing
sure.
myself. And I'm going to have just the joy and pleasure of catching up with people that I know online in person. And
Yep.
so I already know that's going to happen for at least at least one or two people. So I'll have to make extra certain that there are folks that I spend time with, um, and probably not in video calls like yours or conversations like yours are going to be, Jay.
Yep.
But I can't wait to spend some time with other accountants that are interested in Zero, and that have different insights, different perspectives, because I think that's going to be a lot of value to me.
It will
So
be.
pretty stoked. Pretty stoked. I'm also pretty stoked for the men's basketball final tomorrow. Oh man, whew. Did the U.S. men's team dodge a bullet yesterday? Um, they really tried to lose that game to Serbia, but they
What was the
won,
final
and so
score of
now
that?
I think they ended up winning by 4, but they were down
Okay.
by 15, like going into the fourth or early into the fourth. So it was a pretty substantial comeback for LeBron, Steph, and the crew. And they really, really, really got lucky. I think
Yeah.
they tightened up on defense, got lucky on a couple missed shots, and then like really just really made shots a lot. So in that fourth quarter, and so it was a very exciting, exciting game.
Yeah.
There are lots of exciting things that are happening right now at the
Well,
end of the Olympics.
what about the women's soccer finals? When is that?
I think it's
And
tomorrow because the guys'
is
final
it
was
tomorrow as
today.
well? Okay.
I think so. I think the
Yeah.
ladies soccer will be tomorrow, and the ladies basketball will be on Sunday. Maybe I think the ladies basketball might be the very last event. So we're right up to the end of the Olympics now. The gold medal count is super tight between the U.S. and China. So there's lots of how's that going to turn out on the gold medal count. We're the United States is up by like maybe 20 medals overall, so I think we're pretty safe there. But it will be interesting to see what happens in the last couple days of the Olympics, and I will be watching because I have just had a joy doing that during the week. the NBC coverage has been very interesting, right? I talked about that last week of that they have the Gold
Yeah.
Zone, they have a top events thing, where you can watch kind of several things that are happening at the same time, and so that's very good background noise, like watching judo in the middle of a water polo match, and maybe like track and field like qualifications or something like that. It's not really distracting you all that much from your work product, but when that final happens at 1:30 in the afternoon or whatever, like being able to be there and watch that has been really really enjoyable for me because I really love these things and I've loved to be able to see them live in the middle of the day. Um, so that's going to be on my weekend plan list, I think. Jay, do you have anything exciting planned for this weekend or for next week that's not ZeroCon?
We have some family coming in tomorrow. Going to be here
Yeah,
while I'm in Nashville. Going to be visiting with Wendy and the girls here. Uh,
nice.
NASCAR resumes, I think, possibly tonight.
Oh boy, yeah,
But they were having some issues with some weather due to the tropical storm.
makes
So
sense.
yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks. I mean, yeah, haven't had 2 weeks without racing since February. So it's been been missing it.
Nice.
But it hasn't been a dull week. There's been so much news coming out, and one piece that came out next August, the
A year from
Reds
now.
will be hosting the Braves at Bristol Motor Speedway for
What
one of their 3 game set. Yes,
is that right?
I'm
I
really curious to
now,
see how that's going to work out.
yeah, I know Bristol's pretty small. Like, is the track going to be in the field?
They're going to use the infield, and I want
Oh,
to
all right.
I want to see how it's going to work.
Yeah, they're going to like
It doesn't seem
hit
that
it
it's
into
big
turn.
enough, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
hit it into turn three and it's a home run or something like that. Like, just balls
Maybe.
end up on the track out there. That'd be fun.
Well, they've transformed Bristol in the past, and they've made a dirt track out of it. So maybe
Hmm.
they're planning on elevating it and
No,
putting
and just having a weird
artificial
edge
turf.
to it.
I don't. Well, we shall see.
I
I'm
guess
really
so.
interested in see how that's going to break out.
Yeah, that will be fun. So next year around this time, look out for that. Fun,
Mm-hmm.
fun, exciting, exciting. Well, again, next week we will not be here with you, so don't come looking for us next week. We will not be here, but I'm sure you can find our content during the week. And I will not be surprised if Jay and I just end up going live randomly at some point in time about some topic or another during the week because we'll be together.
Yeah, I'm
And
thinking that too.
so so that's gonna probably happen. So you'll definitely hear from us next week, one way or the other. Be that through my vlog, be that through Jay's variety of streams, or something right here on this channel. We will find out next week. But you will not hear from us on Friday next week, and you might not hear from us from on Friday for a while. Because we got some travel, we've got some college stuff, we got some holiday.
Life is happening.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got some life going on, and so instead of being on Fridays, you may find us instead on Thursdays, or we may video an episode prior and then drop it on Friday for you instead. So
Yep.
we'll keep you posted as to what that status and that schedule is going to be going forward. But thank you
TBD.
all for watching today, for listening to us talk about marketing strategies. Make sure both in the e-commerce space and in the accounting space that you're taking time to evaluate that and that you're understanding whether or not you need to make some changes or whatnot in your strategy going forward, so that you can be as successful as you can be. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We will see you at a date to be determined in the future, but we'll definitely see you at ZeroCon next week if you're there, and you'll see
Most
us from
definitely.
there regardless. So have a
Have a
great
great
weekend,
weekend,
everyone.
everybody. We're out.
Thanks for watching.